Today on Engaged by the Spirit, I spoke with Brenda Aikin, who works for Mater Dei Radio, and she is the host of The Morning Blend and The View from the Pew. She's a mother of four and a wife to one of the permanent deacons for the Archdiocese of Seattle, Scott Aikin. And we talked about all kinds of wonderful things today. And she was really open about some of the miscarriages she had had and the death of her first daughter at 9 months old. But we also talked about being in Catholic radio and me being new to Catholic radio. And it was really somewhat of her vocation story and the story of the love of her and her husband, Scott. Brenda, welcome to the show. I'm usually on your show.
You know what? I was just thinking that because I'm supposed to run the interview and now I'm being interviewed. I don't like to talk about myself. I want to know about other people, but I don't do this very often.
Brenda, it's a conversation, not an interview, so I don't want you to feel nervous because we have all the time in the world. We've already actually spent about an hour and a half in the pre-show.
Yeah.
So this is about an hour and a half in for all of our listeners and stuff.
That's kind of typical for us when you come on the morning show.
It's true. I think that we really should post the pre-show and then that should be its own podcast. It's
going to be, the pre-show would
Brenda
be longer.
and Father Peter's pre-show.
The pre-show would be longer than the podcast.
That's true. I think you're right. But the reason I really did want to have you on was because I was saying this in the pre-show that I know you, but I feel like I don't know you. And one of the biggest things that we talked about is we get to talk about our life a lot, like little things like your kids and your deacon husband and everything like that. But I like to hear the narrative a lot more, like your Catholic upbringing. I love your story on how you got to Mater Dei in the first place because it's hilarious.
Right.
And the fact that I'm sort of all of a sudden now in Catholic media, like as of this moment right now, I just think that's kind of an interesting story, like how I met you and how you came to be where you are. And so those are a lot of the things that I wanted to hear about your kind of background and stuff. But I mean, I don't want to talk about having a military kid, having a Marine.
So I can't, were you were not in the Vocations office when you first started coming on the morning show? Were you still like newly ordained?
Right, because I came on KBVM before. When did it start being called Mater Dei, by the way? Do you know?
I think that's when it's been a while.
A long time,
because we had to add KMME down south. So we couldn't be KBVM anymore. Right. So we needed the umbrella name of Mater Dei Radio is what they picked.
Okay, because I would say it started when the station was still at University of Portland. Yeah. And so when I was there, I was a first year seminarian and Dina Marie was the host of like everything, I guess. At that time, it seemed like, I guess, was Father Galati also there then too?
He was. Back then he was just Tony.
Yeah, Tony, right, yeah. And so I went on then, and that was the first time. And then periodically throughout seminary time, you just get asked, oh, hey, would you like to come on? And then, so I think I started even as a deacon and then as a new priest and then eventually the vocations thing. And it just sort of just dovetailed, I guess, eventually.
So it seemed like a good idea to have you on the morning show. And I think that's when we got to meet and then we kind of got this regular gig going on so we can talk about vocations and other things. Because
I have to admit, Brenda, I was a little skeptical. I was like, they're going to replace Dean and Bree. Who's this new lady going to be? Isn't that funny? We were actually just talking about that too. Anytime you replace a position, you're like, who's this new person going to be? Everybody gets their hackles up a little bit.
Oh gosh. I remember coming on when I was interviewing for the job. And that was what I was doing because I knew Dina Marie. I listened to her on the radio. And I remember saying to Pat Ryan, I said, Dina Marie has been such a part of this radio station and she's so knowledgeable and she's got such a deep faith that she can draw on very quickly. I said, I can't be that. I know that about myself. I can't be Dina Marie.
But how did you even become the person that was going to be her successor in the first place?
Right.
That's one of my favorite stories.
Isn't that great? So I interviewed, I can't remember the name of the author, and his book was Dream Bigger. And basically what he talked about in his book was that we have these ideas and dreams about what we can do for our lives. But if we surrender that dream over to God, God's dream for us is so much greater than what our narrow eyes can do or what we think about what we can do. Growing up, even after I first got married, my ideas were like, I could have been a nurse I'd have done well at that. A school teacher. Before I had kids, I worked at a university library, $3 million budget. I would track the budget, right? I was really good at doing that. So, I mean, those were kind of in my wheelhouse.
I'm sorry, I'm smiling a little bit because I was trying to think of your bedside manner as a nurse. And so that was making me laugh.
No nonsense. I wouldn't be Nurse Cratchit, but I would be like, okay, you're fine. I'm going to take care of you, but you don't need to press that button anymore. Right?
That's right. That sassy nurse that everybody loves. It's like, sweetheart, if you press that button one more time,
we're going to have a problem.
You're going to have a problem. That's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of what I thought. I grew up Catholic. I mean, I'm Hispanic on my mom's side. My grandparents came from Mexico in the early 1900s. They moved into a Spanish-speaking neighborhood in San Diego area, Escondido. And, growing up too, because I went to Catholic school, I thought it was normal that grandparents didn't speak the language that you did because they all came from other countries.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting.
Yes, they spoke Spanish. And I didn't really know that much Spanish.
Do you speak Spanish now?
No, not at all. Not at all. Right? And so on my dad's side, we're Italian. And they are all, Italian and Czech, but my father's very Italian. So, I mean, like church was what we did growing up. Went to Catholic school, high school, youth group. Now that's when I met Scott, my husband. We're high school sweethearts. He's 3 years ahead of me, but we went to the same church in California. That's where we met.
That's one of those things I want to know the stats on. Like how many people who are high school sweethearts end up getting married?
Oh, not only that, how many meet at church?
Yeah.
That's the place. I do kind of miss that. The youth groups are different today. They're not like, get yourself a carpet square and go sit down, kids. That's what I did. That's right.
Oh, that's so true. It was a little bit lower tech in those days. But that's how everybody should meet their spouse in church. But of course it doesn't happen. Unless you're at St. Patrick's in Portland here, then I guess that happens there. Or like St. Michael maybe.
That's the advanced version, 2.0. Right. Yeah. And they have carpet squares there.
Wait, so how old were you guys?
The first time I remember meeting Scott was at summer camp, the summer before my freshman year of high school. So I was like 14.
Oh my gosh. That's like my parents were 14.
Yeah. But we were friends for a lot of years, as many people, we were friends for a lot of years. It wasn't until my junior year in high school that we actually started dating. He was already out of school by then.
Okay.
Because he was ahead of me.
Follow up to this conversation, by the way, is I need a summer camp picture of the two of you, please.
As a side note, too, is I'm working on projects at my house. I just got a photo scanner that's sitting on my desk at home. I am scanning all of the print pictures that I have. It's a huge pile, thousands of them.
Oh,
and I'm picking the really important ones, and then we're tossing everything else. And scanning them and digitizing them so that way they're kept, because I just don't want to keep paper anymore. They're in there. I'm pretty sure as I move towards the bottom of the pile.
This gets me pumped up.
Yeah,
Brenda,
I'll bring one in.
I can't wait.
I'll bring in some pictures because I've got
you and Scott.
I've got like 2 Sadie Hawkins dance pictures. That's where the girl asks the boy. Yeah, and I have 2 proms.
Did you always ask Scott, or was there?
Well, yeah, we were dating.
Oh, okay. At that point,
I don't remember going like my freshman or sophomore year. I don't. Oh, no, I went to like a homecoming with somebody else that wasn't Scott before we were dating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, but so we, dated for like 3 years, and we were young for sure when we got married. I was 19.
Wow.
I was 19. He was 22. He
Child
was leaving
bride,
away.
Brenda.
Right? What was I thinking? Even then, and that's been 35 years ago.
Oh,
and
I was
even
35 years. 35 years
Yeah,
now.
35 years ago. It'll be 36 years in April. Even then, 19 was young.
Did you do something for your 35th wedding anniversary? That's a big one.
I think we did. I have to think about it now. That was a whole
very
year
memorable.
ago. It was memorable.
That's incredible, though.
Yeah, we've done some great things.
You guys are a good model because he's a deacon now, too.
He's
That's
a deacon
really good.
now.
Yeah.
Now, at the time that we started dating, though, in fact, here's what's interesting. And I've known a lot of deacons that were this, too. He actually was really seriously thinking about the priesthood.
Oh, okay.
Really seriously. He had a vocation. Crescio, just really, leaning into what God was calling him.
Can you tell people what Crescio is? Because I know it's a little bit of an older movement, and some people are still more familiar. I know Ralph Martin, one of the authors and stuff, he always talks about that was big in his life, but I bet a bunch of younger people would have no idea what Crescio is.
I think
Because it's like a charismatic event, right?
It's like a charismatic movement. And I remember his mom and dad talking about it. It was like a weekend retreats, kind of diving into the Spirit. And that family and friends sent letters of encouragement that were like given ahead of him.
It's like those Palanca letters,
like
right?
Palankas and sending those and just like prayers of encouragement.
Oh, cool.
To kind of really examine vocation. And I think it was like a series of like, there was like weekend retreats. He may have had a spiritual director at the time. I don't exactly know, but that was kind of what he was doing to examine it. But it was really, I don't think it took too long after we started dating. We realized that, priesthood wasn't for him. And, and I'll say this right up, he would have made an excellent priest. He would have.
Yeah. Well, we say as the vocations director, we say that all the time, that really to be a good priest, you really would have had to be a good earthly father and spouse, or that's what you would hope to see. That's what I hope to see in the guys that I talk to, the applicants. If I don't think he could be a good husband and father, I'm like, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't be a priest either, right? I mean, and it sounds kind of critical, but if you're going to be a spiritual father to people and you're going to listen to them and accompany them, you kind of want them to have that same tenderness and protection, all the aspects of a father, right?
What's interesting though too, and looking back, I realize that his vocation to the diaconate, serving the poor, is much different than the vocation of a priest that is married to the Eucharist. It brings the Eucharist. So he would if something ever happened to me, he wouldn't just go, okay, well, I'll be a priest now.
Right.
No, he's fully into his vocation as a deacon.
Did he become a deacon a little bit earlier than some permanent deacons do? Okay.
That's a good part of the story.
Oh, yeah. I never heard that story.
I know. We should get there. Okay. So we were dating though then, and he was, like I said, 3 years older than me. So he was already into college. He was finishing up at the community college, going on to a natural resources degree, 800 miles away. In California. California is a long state. It's a big
place, yeah.
Yeah, so he was getting this is where I'm going. And he said, I want you to come with me. So we had enough Catholic upbringing.
Can I say, what did you think in that moment?
And I went, let's go.
Oh, that's really
life's
cool.
an adventure.
Yeah,
I always think that life's
it's
an adventure.
That moment, that's so pivotal. You ask your true love.
We got engaged and got married at the church where we met. I have received my confirmation. He received his confirmation. No, he did not. He was living he moved from Georgia to California.
Oh, okay.
But I made my confirmation in the church that we got married in.
What was that church?
Resurrection Catholic Church. Still there. It's literally a block from my mom and dad's house.
That's Escondido?
In Escondido, California.
Gotcha.
Kind of cool. It used to be kind of out in the avocado groves. It's kind of built up around it now.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we got married. And then we moved away 3 months later. We never lived in California again. Never in San Diego.
Okay.
We never came back home to San Diego. And we lived a very, we were churchgoers. Were we deep in our faith at that, 19, 20, learning, becoming, figuring it out. But I didn't feel like, we would be like our parents. We'd go on Sundays, we'd have good friends and, enjoy being Catholic.
Was one of you more of an influence on each other with the faith?
Yeah, Scott for sure.
Okay, yeah.
Scott for sure.
I was thinking a guy who discerned. I wondered.
But that was maybe initially. But like I said, life's long and things happen, and then you change your view of how it's going. So we moved to Northern California. Went to Humboldt State University, and then from there, life kind of got going, and we had jobs, and then. As he was getting close to graduation, that thought about okay, maybe it's time to start thinking about a family. We'd been married a few years, and so we were kind of open to it at that point. And so, we did. We decided to start our family, but it got hard. And our first pregnancy, I got to 9 months of my pregnancy, and our daughter died.
Oh gosh, I didn't know that.
I know.
Oh,
see, it's part of it, and I'm glad to say that.
Yeah.
It's a part of what made me, changes my view of my faith.
Yeah.
My daughter, Leanne, it was a lot, and I, used to do a lot of, meet with women. I met women along the way who had suffered. And I said, I understand and I know
Right.
how this feels. I do. And I cried, gallons of tears. Gallons of tears. And I remember thinking, right in your mind, because you're taught the faith and you're like, this is how it's going to go. And I thought as a young person, God, I did what you asked. I could have moved away with Scott and not gotten married. We were still so young and I didn't know what I was going to do. But we valued marriage. We value the sacraments. We learned that and we did it your way. And then this is what you let happen to me. Oh, it was tragic and dark and hard.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't understand. And of all the places that I went to over the years that followed, church was the worst place to go on Sunday. It's just like, how am I supposed to love you? How am I supposed to love you when you let me hurt like this? And it just was hard.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, I can't even imagine. This might sound like a weird question, but because it's something that happened in my own life, did it become a gift later on?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And my ability to look at suffering and death and hardship is relieved because of what we went through.
Yeah.
I know it sounds weird.
It does actually. This is making me realize we have even more in common than I figured we did, but it's even more than I thought in a way.
So we buried our daughter and we kind of kept moving forward. It's like, all right, the sting got less, and I didn't always understand, but I knew that this is where my faith started to change, that my daughter was in heaven.
Yeah.
She was in heaven. And if I want to see her and know her, I need to get to heaven. That's going to be the way.
That's incredible.
That's going to be the way. So we kind of kept moving forward, and God was like, I'm going to use this. He did not want us to go through that. It was an accident. It was an accident what happened to her. Her umbilical cord, just is what happened. And it was an accident. And I know that God did not want that for me, but it happened and he made good of it. And we remained faithful. And there was a group of people, we were living in Northern California then. The church is St. Mary's, and it's still there. And it was a wonderful Portuguese community. A lot of farmers that went to the church. And they knew what happened and just took us in and loved us. Loved us through it all for years. We eventually went on to have our daughter, Alyssa. Our oldest is 26, and we went, okay, I think we're good again, until it wasn't good again.
Was that part hard? Because there's a couple people that I know who something similar happened, and to have their next child after the death of their daughter also that's really hard, to even think about having another child.
I think
again.
In some ways, what was hard was that children are children. Right.
Yeah,
and they were, she'd wake up at night and we're trying to figure out being, brand new parents. And you sometimes, our daughter that passed was somehow holy and perfect. And you think she would have been the model. She wouldn't have put us through this. And we got this other child who is, doesn't know anything that's going on, and she'd carry on and do things. But it was good. No, it was good though.
Yeah.
Having this.
How long was it afterward?
3 years.
Okay, 3 years.
Yeah,
so that's a good
was
amount
long,
of time.
3 years.
Yeah.
And there was a lot. There were misses in between there too, and miscarriages of children that we never had an opportunity to know well enough before they were lost.
Yeah.
So there was something there, and I didn't ever know quite what it was. But we continued and we remained faithful, and we met a wonderful group of people and our best friends in the area. We became godparents to their children, and it was blessed time. And then I got pregnant again, and not long after our first daughter was born. And halfway through that pregnancy, we discovered she had a birth defect.
Oh gosh.
That she was not going to survive. And I just thought, that's it, one and done. I'm not doing this anymore. having children is too heartbreaking. We have this one child, we should count it a blessing, and we're going to be done. And that's kind of what we thought for years. We're just not going to do this anymore. Eventually, our life moved us to Portland, Oregon. My husband's job with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service came through, and so we moved up here. We ended up settling north of the river. We had one little girl and a new job and a new house and a new state and community. And, we just kind of kept moving along with that. But we realized we had to surrender. We couldn't keep living the way that we did.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and contraception was a part of it.
Oh, okay.
That was a part of it.
Yeah.
And we read a book, Pierced by a Sword. Bud McPherson, perhaps, was the name of the author. And it was a novel, but it talked about a couple that was contracepting and some of the real scientific side effects from it.
Right, yeah.
And after and it was really a novel that we went, okay, our daughter, our first daughter, and our other daughter that had the birth defect, they died because of an accident in their health or because of how they were growing. We didn't cause that. I said, but by me using contraceptives, if I am directly causing by using the pill the death of our children, I can't live with that. We can't do this. And it was literally a decision made in one night.
Wow. That reminds me of, Scott Hahn's story about his conversion. One of it started with his wife was doing research for, it was kind of the big wave of change, I want to say in the 20s and 30s, of when other Christian denominations who were not for any birth control measures and stuff like that kind of were like, yeah, it's okay. And we were like the only holdouts, right? It's like Catholicism basically. And then Scott Hahn's like, that can't be true. And he starts doing the research, and it's his research into contraception and abortion and all these different things that is the beginning of the catalyst of him becoming Catholic. Because it's like, this can't be the case, these Catholics, right?
Right.
I was like, wow. So one night he made that decision.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think he outlined that at Rome Sweet Home.
Yeah.
Because I think I can remember. Yeah. So we said, all right, we if we're going to trust God, we are going to trust God.
Yeah.
We have to. And God, he made good of the sorrow. Because from that decision, we had Amanda. And then like a year and a half later, we had Ashlyn. And then a couple of years after that, we had Christian.
Wow.
And so all of our kids
incredible.
are all adults now. And they asked me, they know the story. They know we've taken them back to the cemetery where our daughters are buried.
Leanne, is that right?
Leanne and Jordan are the names of our two daughters. And they asked, they're like, God, don't you wish they were here? And I said, well, no. And there was a time I would never have said that. But looking back, absolutely. No, I don't. For one, they're in heaven, right? How selfish of me to wish them to not be in heaven and be with me. I said the second thing too is at the time in our lives and where we were in our faith, if we had Leanne and Alyssa and Jordan, there may not be Amanda, and there definitely would not have been an Ashton or a Christian. So I cannot wish my life to be different than it is, because it is a blessing. Life's a blessing, and it's a gift from God, and I am thankful for all of it. And you have to be thankful for the sad parts too.
Yeah, I was having recently, there was a guy promoting to Chief Master Sergeant. We were talking about that in the pre-show, just that rank, which is a rare rank in the enlisted part of the Air Force and the Army. And I was going to do the invocation, which is the prayer. There's kind of a tradition in military to do a prayer before things like promotions and award ceremonies and stuff like that. A lot of people don't realize that. It's a military thing, but you have this chaplain give a prayer. And he spoke with me beforehand so I could get to know him a little bit. And it's amazing when all we can see is the tragedy. I always think of it sort of like a tunnel, where you're in the dark part of the tunnel. You're like, this is awful. I don't want to be here. But again, the unique thing about tunnel is that there's a light that you can see, and you realize it's like, and that tells you there is another side, but sometimes you get a little bit blinded by the fact that there is another side. And when we were talking, he told me this whole story about how there was a family dog, and the dog didn't like anybody. But for some reason, the dog like would sit at his feet, and this dog loved him, and it listened to him, and so they became like the best of friends. And then it turns out that he was on drill, and he was staying at a family member's house, and they were walking the dog. He's like, remember, keep the dog on the leash. The only one he'll listen to is me if he's off the leash. So you keep him on the leash. And what happened? He's off the leash, gets hit by a car. The dog dies. He's absolutely devastated by this whole thing. Can't stay at the family's house anymore because he just can't bring himself to do it because he's so broken up by it. So he's like, I guess I'll take the Air Force up on the hotel that they're offering. And so he goes to the hotel, and his future wife is working at the front desk of the hotel.
Yeah.
And he told me that story, and we laughed about the two phrases, God writes straight with crooked lines, and man plans and God laughs. Because you look back on these things, and
Right?
it's just absolutely incredible to see how the worst tragedy of our life can be one of the most enlightening things in the world. And you're like, oh, okay, that's where things went in a completely different trajectory,
Yeah.
Gosh,
So,
that's incredible.
it is. And like I said, God he cries with us.
Yeah.
He's not looking at us going, all right, I'm going to throw this at you. Let's see what you do. No, he cries with us. And he walks with it. He carries us during those times. And I was carried for years. I'm sure of it. And so, it was a good life. It was a good life.
You mentioned something about, were you walking with other women through some of that pain? Was that just kind of like a ministry?
No, it was because, which was funny because since I wasn't contracepting, I needed to do something else. And so that's when I started practicing natural family planning.
Okay, yeah.
And I had a great, counselor that was helping me through this. And she said, have you ever thought about teaching as well? And I went, no. I said, I think that I can do that.
I would like to learn from you. You sound like a good teacher.
I would be good. Let's talk about it. Let's be straightforward. I'll tell you all about those little baby stickers and how you put them on a chart. It was,
That was like, so these are the pre-app days. I take it, right?
Apps.
Everybody's got an app now.
Yeah, there's an app for it now for sure. But no, back in the day, we had just little stickers and chart everything out. So I did. So right when the time I started this program, it was the Creighton model, and I went to Creighton University, Paul VI Institute. Scott decided and was accepted into the diaconate program for the Archdiocese of Seattle.
So how old was he then?
So he was 35, I believe is like the minimum. And he was probably like 37, 38 at the time.
Yeah, it's a young permanent deacon.
Yeah. Maybe even younger, maybe 36.
Okay.
Because by the time he went through all of that and I finished my training, our son was 2 years old when he was ordained. And at the time, it was Archbishop Brunette in the Archdiocese of Seattle that was the ordaining bishop. And he talked about it actually in his homily. He said, what a unique group of men we have. He said, one, as I understand, and we were, of course, Aikin, we were sat by Alphabet in the cathedral for his ordination. And so we're in the front row, which is really, so any parent knows that if you've got young kids, you need to be between pews. You need to have we were right out there in the open. But he pointed that out. He said how wonderful and how rare to have such young men raising families.
Wow.
In the diaconate. Yeah. So that was kind of life. I was a stay-at-home mom. He was working his job with the Fish and Wildlife Service and Bureau of Indian Affairs, and he was a deacon. It was great. It really was.
What was it that kind of got him to the diaconate at that point? So was it kind of a seed ever since he discerned the priesthood that was sort of germinating?
Yes.
Or
I think he obviously always had a vocation.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the priesthood. And there was like some informational meetings that were starting. They were,
because you have to be in on it too. I think a lot of people don't know that. Like, the guy doesn't just say, "Oh, I'm going to be a deacon." Like, I hope that's okay with you, sweetheart.
I actually contracts. I actually had to sign contracts saying that I approve. Right? I mean, they're serious, and so they were starting a new program. And with the Archdiocese of Seattle, they formed the entire education program for the men who are pursuing the diaconate. So they formed a class There were like 35 of them who eventually, got to the inquiry part and started going. What he realized from the time that he went to the first like introductory session of, the diaconate for the Archdiocese, nobody said no and doors were opening.
Yeah.
I mean, right along the way. I mean, we did, like weekend formation programs for, every month for 6 months. And there were tests that he took and, psychological assessments that we had to take and all these things.
All too familiar.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is like, they were very strange. And I thought, this is so much. But every step of the way, there was like, he moved on to the next.
Kept going, yeah.
And he moved on to the next level. And then they finally formed the final group. And there we were. And we were only 3 kids at the time.
Okay.
And then as he entered into his first year of academics, I was pregnant.
Okay, yeah. So you guys ended up, is it like 6-ish kids if you think of Leanne and Jordan?
Oh, well, no. If we count all of the known miscarriages, we're at 10.
Holy cow.
10, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so again, there were misses in there. But.
And what's Scott's diaconate assignment now? Where is he assigned? Which church?
So now he's at Holy Redeemer in Vancouver.
Okay.
Then we spent, and that was a transition change too, because we were at St. Joseph's. Our kids went to the school there. I mean, that was a great family to be a part of at St. Joseph's. But after he was there for 17 years. So this is more recent change that he switched ministries. And so all of the people that we, had known for years, stories. It takes time to know a person's story. And after all these years, we really did learn the stories of a lot of people at that church. But it was time for a change. And Holy Redeemer did not have a deacon. There were 4 deacons at St. Joe's at the time.
4.
So Scott says, I think this is the nudge that I need. So, he did that a couple years ago.
Gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he... Would you say fish and wildlife? I wasn't.
Yeah, U.S.
That's his main job.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, until very recently. Told me this before the show.
He's retired as the federal government's going through some changes and stuff.
Yeah, that's so he got the Elon email.
He got the fork in the road. I saw the
so
fork in the road email. Yeah.
Because we've been talking about that a lot in the military as well. So there's like a lot of these, and there's a lot of state workers and federal workers that are contracting with the military. So it's very unique. The tension on the base is kind of unusual because just a lot of people don't know where they stand.
It's for sure for civilians.
Yeah.
The officers they have a job.
Yeah.
My young Marine, he ain't coming home anytime soon.
No,
he is a Marine.
He's very important now. And so, but that's another thing I wanted to ask you about, right?
Yeah.
Because you are the mother of a Marine.
I'm a Marine mom.
What that is like, because this was very recent for him, right? He just graduated basic training
last year.
and stuff. So
my life's an open book. So anybody who listens to the Morning Blend knows I've got 2 married daughters. I've got one daughter that is trying to figure life out, and then I've got our youngest. Does
she mind if we talk about her online? Let's talk about the one figure. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Oh, that's a whole. You should have her on as a guest. She would just you would be exhausted. Actually, of all of the children, she's the one that's most like me, my poor husband, and she's the one living at home. So he's like, there are 2 of you harassing me all the time. And I'm like,
oh, that's so funny.
Genetics, yeah, that was hard. I have 1 son, and we always were very open to allowing him to choose. Like he went on Quo Vadis days. Like if you're going to say no, he was always like, I am not going to be a priest. And I said, well, if you can't say that.
Don't people realize how offensive that is sometimes? I want to tell the world. It's just like, hey, I'm a priest.
That's right. How quickly you can say no. No, he actually had to discern the priesthood before he was allowed to say no. And so we did send him to Quo Vadis
God bless you.
Thank
and Scott. Thank you for doing that.
He loved it though.
He loved Quo Vadis?
He loved Quo Vadis days. And that was
good.
an important time for him too, because, he had to live his faith away from mom and dad. And he got to really see priests and seminarians there.
And know them as real people.
Way. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Like playing, being competitive on teams with them, and talking about faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
It was Quo Vadis. Yes, they should. As well as did our daughters. The Sisters of Reparation here in Portland, they would offer vocation weekends for young girls. And during the summer,
good,
they would
yeah.
stay with them at their convent and kind of discern their vocation.
We've been talking about that a little bit too, because of course I'm in the vocations department,
Yeah.
but it's primarily for priests, but we're trying to help a little bit cultivate more religious vocations for women to some extent.
Mhm.
But there's certain limitations that even just the department itself has. So we're
Yeah.
trying to figure that out. So that's kind of cool to hear that
Yeah.
you did that. And so you raised this beautiful family. You,
Well,
you,
I mean,
you got a deacon over the finish line.
Here's the thing, though, with raising kids are kids. Now, just because Scott is a deacon or because I was involved in whatever ministries I was, they still were kids.
Wait, what
and
do you
so
mean?
that
So
was
they
the
don't just
beautiful-
like listen to you?
No, they all got taken out of church before. We were standing in the back. I mean, we
I love
lived it.
That's kind
Just
of my
like
favorite
every
thing.
other family.
Even as a priest, to look out on all the parishioners, it's kind of fun seeing I think as
Well,
the
for
priest,
you-
actually to see the disciplining going on, it's kind of fun because
Oh.
you guys are like mortified.
Oh, and even worse.
But it's kind of entertaining for
Yeah,
us. I
no,
think.
and then we have Scott and I have the evening show here on Friday at Mater Dei Radio, View from
Yeah.
the Pew, and the whole premise
Right.
of that is the view from the pew. Because as a deacon, and even the years before he became a deacon, he was literally in the rite of acolyte, and he was in the right.
Oh,
he
right.
received all those minor rites leading up to his diaconate
Yeah.
ordination, and he was MC, so he would be serving at the altar, and I'm in the pew. And so our view of church every Sunday is looking at each other.
That's good. I like
Yeah.
that.
So that's the view.
That's how you came up with the name?
That's the name.
Oh, that's
the name.
really cool.
So we look at each other. So when he reads the gospel, I pretty regularly find the seat that is right in front of the ambo. So that way I can look at him in the face.
So then you just got to a point somewhere in life and you're like, no, I think I'm going to be a radio personality.
I know, right? So we're getting all the way back to the beginning of
Because
our
it's like
discussion.
you never mentioned
No.
anything about
No.
media leading up to this whole
None of
entire
it.
point.
None
I
of
thought
it.
that was your dream, and you were a broadcast major and all
No,
this.
see, that's why I said in the interview, we have these ideas of what we should or could be doing, but God dreams bigger for us.
Yeah.
Right. So I started picking up part-time jobs, when the kids were going to school, just that little extra money. We had 4 kids for a couple of years in Catholic school. It's,
Yeah,
that's a lot of tuition.
my mom worked at a daycare and an infant room while my sister and I were in college.
So
to help.
I worked at a Catholic bookstore, the Catholic Queen of Peace Catholic bookstore. Many people were familiar with it. God rest her soul, Alice Bennett
Oh, okay.
had ran that for many, many years. And so it was always just kind of the thought after I got comfortable there, and I learned a lot about my faith in books, and people would come in looking for things or wanting to find out how to do daily prayer, and I can tell you the difference between Christian shorter prayer, Christian prayer, and then the 4-volume series of
Oh, that's
prayer.
good.
Yeah,
that's
I
super
learned
helpful.
all of that.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of the community too because of that. And I really kind of thought, she was aging. I thought I could keep this place going. And when it came that time, it just didn't work out. We couldn't come to terms.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was heartbreaking for me because I really had a plan. Again,
That was the next step, right?
that was the next step. I was going to take this over. And so I ended our relationship there because I was so heartbroken that I couldn't take it over. And she needed somebody to do that. And I just thought, I can't stay here and watch somebody else do what I had planned on doing. And so I had a good deacon in my house, and he said to me, and he was so confident, he goes, Brenda, God will place before you the next thing that you're supposed to do. And I go, well, I don't know what it is, because what am I qualified for? I've been a stay-at-home mom for the last, 15 years. I've been working in a Catholic bookstore in Vancouver, Washington. I am not prepared for anything. And so he goes, it'll be placed before you. So
Were you angry, by the way? Like, did you
I
said, remember we
wasn't.
talked about cultural, so you have a Mexican-Italian background. And
Yeah.
so sometimes us Italians
Oh.
can be a little fiery when things don't go.
Yeah, it felt like, when it actually felt like a death.
Yeah, yeah.
It did. I grieved it.
That's super important that you said that, because I don't think that we give credence to that enough for a lot of people, that the end of college, the end of a relationship, the end of, a dream of some sort really does. There is a type of grieving sometimes, and I think we could be dismissive of it
Yeah.
at times. And so, it's
So
important.
so I was disappointed because I really thought, into our retirement years here, you could be a deacon. We can run this little bookstore together and just grow in our own little way, bring people to God.
Yeah.
Oh, how perfect. How perfect. And it didn't work out. So it was right about that time our oldest daughter was getting ready to leave for college. I thought, okay, I'm going to take the summer off. Our oldest daughter is getting ready to leave. I'll help, enjoy the summer with the kids, help getting her room packed up, and we'll get her moved off to college. And so it was about that time. In fact, it was Scott's 15th anniversary. 10th. It was his 10
already 10 years.
diaconate ordination. And him and one of his classmates decided to go on a pilgrimage, and they were going to walk from Assisi to Rome, the way of St. Francis.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like a 2-week trek that they were going to do. They had been planning it for a while. So he was getting ready to go on that. And it turns out that the day he was leaving, he was driving to Seattle, and they were going to leave from Seattle to Rome. Our goddaughter was making her first Holy Communion. Now, here's what's funny. She was supposed to make it like a week later. At the way that St. Joseph's did, they have a few kids every week over the springtime at every Mass on Sunday, rather than like everybody all at once. And so he was going to be gone, and I knew that, and I said, I'll be there. I'll be there for your first communion, but Scott won't. And they called us like 3 days before Scott was supposed to leave and said, well, somebody showed up for the wrong weekend. It opened up a spot for this weekend, so she's going to make her first Holy Communion this Sunday. And we went, great. Scott will rearrange his schedule. We'll go to that Mass, which I think wasn't the typical time that we would ordinarily go. So we go, and our goddaughter receives her first Holy Communion, which is really beautiful when you have, your godfather is a deacon, because she received precious blood for the first time from him, because the deacons was associated or linked to the precious blood.
Right, yeah.
And so it was wonderful. So as typical, he, after Mass, he's greeting and talking to a lot of people. And so I sit down in the pews in the front of church, and I'm just kind of waiting for him to be done, because we're going to take pictures with our goddaughter. And while I'm sitting there looking at God, somebody that worked at the radio station who went to our church at the time, his name was John, came up next to me, and he had his son. I knew them because they were my NFP clients for a little while.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And, Scott, I think we had maybe gone to their wedding years before. And so he goes, Brenda, he goes, I saw you in church, and I got to thinking. He said, I heard you weren't at the bookstore anymore. And I said, no, I'm not. And he goes, are you thinking about working again? And I said, well, eventually. I said, but I don't know right now. And he goes, the reason why I'm asking you is because there's an opening at the radio station. And he said, I think you would be good at it. He goes, have you ever thought about that? And I said, no. Why would I think? Remember, I said, a nurse, teacher, bookkeeper. No, radio was not on the list of the dreams that I thought possible for myself.
Did he ever tell you what it was that stuck out to him? Your magnetic personality and gregarious nature?
I never asked that. But he said it was definitely a holy. And it's funny because the way that St. Joe's is set up in Vancouver is that, I don't know if there was an idea that there would be civic events or something like that, but the pews that are directly in front of the altar are chairs that can be removed.
Oh, okay.
And that outside of that, on the sides, those pews look directly at each other. So they're not like angled towards the altar, they're angled towards each other. So you kind of have to look to the side when you're in Mass to see the altar, right? So I was in like the side spot where I could be on the side where I knew our goddaughter was going to receive the Blessed Sacrament and the precious blood, so I could take a picture, because I want to be on that side. So we were actually looking at each other from across the church. Like I could see, how you wave at people beforehand or whatever. And he said to me, the only thing he said is, I think it was the Holy Spirit, because I thought about it in Mass and I thought, well, if something presents itself that I will see her after Mass, I'll mention it to her. And he said, after Mass, you were sitting in the front of the altar waiting. So he goes, that was my cue to come and talk to you.
So it really was like implanted in his mind in a way. And then, wow.
And
that's
so
really cool.
Yeah. And so Scott, when he went on his pilgrimage, I told him about it, and he said, oh, I will walk this for you. And that must have been like, I don't know, springtime, April maybe?
What year is this?
2018.
Okay.
And June of that year, I was on the air.
I
had to be looking at God to realize this is the next thing. Because God had said, God will present before you the next thing that you're supposed to do. And I had to be looking at God and go, wait, this is
the wise deacon.
Thing.
Wow.
This is the thing.
See, this is why we call the show Engaged by the Spirit, because that's exactly what happened.
It is because of the Holy Spirit. And the funny thing is, and even Pat will tell you that, he goes, Brenda, there was nothing on your resume that told me you should be the
Brenda,
next
you're completely unqualified for the position.
Totally
but we'd like
unqualified. But here's the thing
that's
that
like
John...
the story of my life, I feel
This is what John said. He goes, we need 3 things for this position. And think about this. This is what he told me. And all those years ago when I'm sitting at church and he's telling me about it. He goes, we need, somebody preferably who has radio experience. I mean, that would be helpful. We need somebody who is a faithful Catholic.
Yeah, that's big.
And we need somebody who is connected to the community. He goes, we can teach you how to be on the radio, but we can't teach you how to be a faithful Catholic or how to be connected to a community.
Yeah, amen.
And Pat goes, Brenda, your resume, you weren't even a lector. That's how little experience I had.
Did you, so there was no platform that you really ever had, maybe other than teaching like NFP, where you were speaking out to people or something?
I think that it's important for all of us to recognize our God-given talents. Yeah. We are given gifts. I have a gift. I can talk to people. And that was something I definitely learned at the bookstore too.
Right.
Because strangers would come in all the time. Customers would come in all the time. And sometimes they were in all different states of life. Sometimes they were lost. They were homeless because it wasn't necessarily a good part of town either. And, we'd pray sometimes, and I'd help people and offer them ideas. So I learned to talk to people a lot about the faith. And I've always kind of been that way. I have a loud voice. I was a cheerleader in high school.
Were you really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I was a cheerleader.
You owe me so many pictures. You owe me camp pictures. You owe me cheerleading pictures. All kinds of cool stuff. That's so funny. That's something I think we both really do have in common. That there was, my parents used to say it like this. They said, you just, like back in the day, people had sandboxes that you played in the sandbox, right? And my parents said, everybody ended up becoming your friend. Like you're sitting there playing in the sandbox, parents are chatting with each other at the park. And then you just always were able to kind of get along with people. And yeah, I sort of learned that about myself at one point, that I really liked being around people and talking with people. And then of course the things that God called me to do, be a priest, be a chaplain. And it's just constant FaceTime with other people and just learning about them and listening to them. So we have that totally in common, it seems like.
We can talk about a lot of things, right? And how easy, though, is it, Father, when you align your will to God, when you finally all right, I'm giving up control of this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You're going to have to
it's so much easier too. I wish more people were just let go.
Yeah, it was so easy.
Yeah.
And how happy I am. Mm-hmm. How happy you are just because of that, just to be open. And yeah, so it was a journey to get here. But I look at my job, and yeah, I have to get up early to get to the radio station. But every day I get to spend 2 hours talking about my faith to whoever might be listening. And there's always this moment, like right as, now it's Father Mike Schmitz is on before our morning show goes on the air at 7:00. There's just kind of like this moment in between when his show ends and it's like the ID and I've got everything set up and we're ready to start, that I just kind of say a prayer. Like just quick, just help me say what I need to say today. Yeah.
It's funny. I do that same thing, like right about before I'm about to process down the aisle for Mass. I do that same thing, like the Come Holy Spirit sort of, let me preach what you want me to preach kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sort of prayer of like, give me the words.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So,
really cool.
yeah, so it's good. I love what I do. But, there's always doubt. And whenever we're trying to do good work, we're trying to bring, people to God, there's always, doubt that sneaks in sometimes. And I always have to go back and remember, God chose me to do this. And I've got to remember that. And it's not bragging. I don't think it's bragging to say that I do a good job.
Mhm.
I value my job, and I learn and I read and I practice so that way I can get better at it.
And I agree with you too. As somebody who is on your show now, I get to be on your show almost every month now. And it's pretty cool to just actually be on the other side of the microphone and see you. Like to watch,
Yeah.
you're like, because it's the same thing with me. I guess I have the experience because of preaching and teaching and doing a lot of those things, which I've done for a long time. And I coached. So I was used to speaking to groups of people and in different environments. But I never really did anything
Yeah.
on the radio until I would do stuff with you guys, and I would see. But I picked things up kind of quick. Even I think it was the chemistry that we all had on the Share-a-thon, I think that might have been the impetus to do this.
Yeah.
It was because it's interesting. The Share-a-thon's a funny environment where you sort of have to toss the ball to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody just seemed to do it. And we all had so much fun that I stayed there for 3 hours that day.
I remember that.
And it was just
Yeah.
such a funny thing. And I saw, oh, okay, that's the way that you say the phone number and do all of these things. And so I liked jumping out there, and it was a really good time. And the Share-a-thon's a little bit stressful because you're like, oh my gosh, are we going to meet the goal? And
All right. So for people who are listening, this is how we really realized too that we were going to have a great relationship, because the Share-a-thon that's our pledge drive. So twice a year in order to raise money, right? And so you had just started on at the Vocations office, I think at that point.
Yeah,
and
I think so.
It was like, okay, this is what we have coming up. We're going to try to raise money for an hour. We're going to have you on as the guest. And it was, I remember it very well. It was a 4:00 hour. And you came, and it's like, okay, this is the 4:00 hour. And it was fabulous. You really took to it. You loved it.
It was very fun.
It was a lot of fun.
It got me super amped. I think I had a hard time sleeping that night because it's like later and it amps you up,
And the thing is we didn't have guests for the next 2 hours. We
Right.
tried to have it. So then you were like, oh, well, I don't mind staying another hour. And so then you stayed another hour.
It just flew by.
And then,
Yeah.
you walked out and we went into the 3rd hour. I think you were tapping on the window at the, like, tap, tap. What are you guys doing in there? So we let you back in and you did a 3rd hour of that.
Thank you for letting me back in. I appreciate that. Well, this is interesting. Speaking of all these things, radio stuff. So this might be a more controversial topic. We were
Okay.
talking about it last time I was here. So all of the good things, like we're talking about a lot of the good things, but I think we were talking about, what was somebody say? It was a criticism. It's like, You're too chatty, or was it something like that? Or
yeah. And again, those are things that we learn on. We recently did a
but
survey.
I like that personally, but it's funny. Some people are not going to like. This is like being a priest.
I know.
I don't like it when Father does blah blah blah.
I know it's hard, and
it is hard, yeah.
But you know what? I needed to remind myself to take those criticisms.
Yeah,
as
it's
well
important.
too.
I have to remind myself.
It's always important to know that you can do better, and that the way that you are doing it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way. And so try to get to the point. Yeah, right. I can talk, and we did. We talked for about an hour before we sat down to today's podcast. But it was time for us to get to the point. We got to get things done.
Right, but that's what I do like, and you're seeing it in the political world and in other parts of the world. That a lot of people say that the election this year, a big part of it was long form things because everybody wanted to know, and they started to listen to like Joe Rogan or like all of these other people, and they were like, well, if I'm going to actually learn about what this person thinks, then I need to hear what they actually think. And it's not cut off by very short snippets of time. Because now we just have the time for you to actually tell the story, and we're not nearly as limited. And so that's pretty fascinating. And I learned a lot from other people on the base and young guys that are applicants now. And they tell me that none of them watch network news, like 0%. And they say, oh yeah, like I listen to podcasts. And you're like, interesting, or YouTube. And that's how a lot of people even converted to Catholicism because of whatever populated on their feed. And I think it was, that was the thing. I was on your show, and then you said to me, it was so funny because we were talking about this earlier. It was like, how about that viral, article about you? And I was like,
yes.
What? And I remember it was on the air because I didn't know what you were talking about initially. And I was at World Youth Day, and Claudette, who used to work for the Archdiocese of Portland, she interviewed me in World Youth Day, but she interviewed, it's World Youth Day, like hundreds and hundreds of priests. And then I guess they did 3 selections in that article. And I was one of them. She asked me if I was like, sure. And it was such like an afterthought. I was like, yeah, no problem. And you were talking about that article. And I remember I had a priest friend of mine that I studied with in Rome who was in Rockville Center, New York. And then one of Father Randy's priest friends, who was a couple years under me, is in like Australia. And all these people were texting me the article. And Bishop Peter texted me the article. And so I knew that people had texted it to me. I was like, oh, wow, like, that's crazy. And wow, he's in Australia. And then you mentioned it. And then you're like, well, it's got like 20,000 views. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And there was something to me about, of course, Bishop Barron, and honestly, a lot of people way before that. Archbishop Fulton Sheen, Mother Angelica. I read Mother Angelica's book this past year, and that inspired me a lot because she kind of functions a little bit like I do. She's like, just start, and in her voice, just start. And if God doesn't want it, the whole thing will fall apart. Like, I just loved that concept. And so I finally felt like that was speaking to me because we started talking about these things, and like you start brainstorming a little bit. And I was like, okay. And that's like my foray into this whole thing. And I'm like, and I'm still like, I don't even know what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I'll put my interviewer cap back on because I'm your guest, but I'm going to ask you a question, though.
Okay.
Because this is your podcast.
I love questions.
So what is your hope for people who listen to this podcast and your future podcasts?
My hope is that God becomes a part of the fabric of people's life. Yeah. And that's exactly what you have been telling me. There's this point that things change, and you just can't go through any part of your day without being sort of God conscious. And that's kind of what happened to me. It's like I was a cradle Catholic, and I was raised in the faith like you were. But yeah, we were just sort of like going to Mass on Sunday Catholics. Mm-hmm. It's not like I grew up having this rich devotional. Oh, we gathered around the fireplace and we prayed the family rosary.
I guarantee you, there was never a time that we prayed the rosary together as a family. Yeah. Unless it was at somebody's funeral.
Right. Yeah. No, we didn't do any of that kind of stuff. And but there was a point, and of course, as you were talking about the death of your daughter, the death of my fiance, death changed my life.
Yeah.
And it was the thing that made me live the most. And then, of course, that is like our faith. It's just like all life comes from, Christ's sacrifice on the cross, like true eternal life. And you're like, oh, okay. And then when that happened to me, I was like, I can't live my life the same way going forward.
Man.
And I thought about this oddly today. It's funny that you say that you asked me that question, because I was like, I'm not always the best, but I'm conscious of God so much, so often, even when I'm in the gym and I'm looking at other people and I'm thinking about their lives, and I might be on the stair climber and I'm listening to the rosary on Hallow. And there's just so much, it's just absolutely woven into my life. And I think when people have the opportunity to hear like a beautiful story, like your story or anybody's story, that you're just like, how many mothers out there will hear what you were able to tell me and be like, oh my gosh, that happened to me.
Yeah.
But we don't always talk about it, or we always have to, it's how much time do you have to get into that? It's not something that you say in an elevator when you meet somebody, right?
Exactly.
And so I guess that's just my hope, that more people get to meet this is what it looks like to just live a Catholic life.
Absolutely.
It just, it's kind of ugly sometimes, but it's super beautiful a lot of times too.
It certainly is.
And everything in between, right?
Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey.
Oh my
and I'm
gosh.
still on it. I'm not even close to the finish line.
Not even close,
God willing.
Right?
I think that there's a lot of hardship ahead, but it's going to make the beautiful times even better.
Right, yeah. And I also really enjoy your positivity very much.
Thank you.
By the way, because that was the other thing I thought about when I came here to Mater Dei, that it was a lot of lifting up. And even when I hear some of the applicants or the seminarians that I have now, when they were in their stages of discernment, a lot of them that were listening to the radio station, you always hear, I never hear that, and then I was listening to Mater Dei and then I was really depressed. Right? It's just like, it's always this giant lift in their spirit. And actually, you could see the Holy Spirit working through the channel, through you, through all of the people who have been on, because sometimes those men were sitting in the car and they're like, I don't know, Lord. And then all of a sudden you say something that cuts like right to their heart. Or now people are telling me, they're like, oh, Father, I prayed the Angelus with you today. Or you said this thing on the radio, and because I'll fill in at their parish. And I'm like, man, people actually hear this stuff. And it was the reach, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think about it, well, if St. Paul were alive today, he probably would use media.
Absolutely.
You think, are we really doing a good job? Archbishop Sample kind of challenged us as priests to evangelize more. And I thought, no matter what my appointment is, whether I'm appointed as the Vocations director, as a parish priest, as the chaplain of the 142nd, I still need to evangelize as a priest. And I was like, I think this is a more effective way of doing it, is to do something that's a podcast that would be on the media that people are taking, especially young people, are taking in today. And so,
all right. Well, I'm going to tune in.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear who else you can have on.
Gosh.
I'm not going to listen to this podcast.
Well, you're going to have to be can you be one of my regular guests?
Back.
Will you promise me that?
I'll come up with some crazy idea, some thought, random thought.
Brenda, thank you. Thank you for sharing just your life and your story, and really your vocation story and Scott's vocation story. And thanks for inviting me on your show, because it's the thing, honestly, that was one of the seeds that made me even think about, maybe I could do that.
Yes, you can. Yeah. Absolutely. If I can, you can for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Thank you so much.
It's been a lot of fun.
Brenda.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you too.